You remember my opening remarks first day that we have only one mission. T-Forum has only one mission, and that is transfer of knowledge to and within tourism. And I also said, why do we need to do that? Is because both the industry and academia in the field of tourism have grown, but they have not grown together. They have grown separate from each other, and the gap has increased. Therefore, the time has come, especially during the coronavirus difficult times that we are experiencing, to couple theory and practice, to bridge them actually. But the issue is really not only how to bridge them, but also how to keep it going. It doesn't mean that in the past, the two have not been bridged. They have been bridged in one moment, in one session, in 1 week, and then discontinuity. How can we make this bridge to have a two-way traffic? And that's the second part of the challenge. Academicians might be able, they should be able to go to the industry, but the industry is not quite receptive, and it doesn't want to share or is reluctant to use its tacit knowledge with us. So we need to generate this traffic the same way that other fields of study are working with their counterparts. T-Forum, I give you a little history of that, and I decided that another way I have to tell you why we came together and why we should have come together, and we did that in beginning 2015, is if we show you a video that we put together about 4 years ago. In 3 minutes, it tells you why there is a need for T-Forum. Julieta, or I don't know who's in charge, would you please show the video? Which is also online, by the way, online on our website.
Yes, Professor, we will do that.
Okay, now, if you.
Once upon a time, there was a land inhabited by wise people. Scholars who studied all the surrounding mysteries and were educated in all the disciplines: geography, anthropology, psychology, economy. This region was known as Wise Land. Their watchful eyes were also directed towards other continents, so they discovered a land beyond the Western Sea, a land full of natural wonders like waterfalls, lakes, coral reefs, submarine life, forests. The continent was also rich in cultural and artistic heritage, ancient monuments, temples, libraries, museums. This region was known as Tourist Land. Be it for its beauty or for its cultural patrimony, this wonderland began to receive visitors from other kingdoms who spent their holidays there. The locals soon found the opportunity for business and development that tourism represented. Over the years, a new type of human developed. Not a magician, not a merchant, neither a peasant nor a craftsman. An easily recognizable stereotype, yet never seen before. The tourist. The wise men saw this humanoid spread and specialize, so they started to inventory and catalog the tourists by their preferences and the places they chose to visit. The sun, sand and sea tourist, the cultural tourist, the cycling tourist, the business tourist, the nature tourist, the gastronomic tourist, the spiritual tourist. Travel agencies and tour operators relentlessly brought tourists to Tourist Land, and the local merchants turned their houses into guest houses and built pubs, restaurants, theaters, amusement parks, discotheques, so the tourist could stay, eat and have fun. Tourist Land flourished and prospered, but unplanned tourist activities led to some troubles, such as overcrowding, pollution, inflation and seasonality. Merchants looked for solutions beyond their borders. One day, they crossed glances with the scholars. As a result of that, they started a fruitful collaboration which would be the solution to all the problems of Tourist Land. Innovative solutions emerged, and new tourism models that were more responsible, efficient, profitable, and sustainable were created. A bridge was built to unite both territories. Over this bridge, they built a forum which would bring together the theory and the practice of tourism. And they called it T-Forum. T-Forum, bridging theory and practice.
Thank you very much for the video, Julieta. I trust some of you
Jafar, that's a great video.
thank you. It puts the message across. There were lots of hidden messages in it. You know, as you may notice, it said that academicians began to quantify tourism, develop tables and charts, and all of that credit goes to economists. They were the first discipline that they discovered tourism and quantified it, and it became suddenly important for other disciplines to study. So thanks to economists. But the problem is, as we all know, we all became very good at quantifying and qualifying tourism with our different methodologies, etc. And we have a body of knowledge which is very rich. It's a stockpile of knowledge, mostly, excuse me, this is our phone, sorry. Sorry, you cannot control everything around here. So we have a stockpile of knowledge, which is going nowhere. And that's the problem. We wanted to generate this traffic between the industry and the tourism industry and the discipline, or the field of tourism. I don't want to call it discipline, field of tourism. And this is the mission of T-Forum. Just today, we ended a very nice session on climate change, and I have a question later on for Jeffrey Lippman, who's joining us as a member of this panel as well. But before we move on to the closing remarks by different colleagues, may I invite, or let's say before I invite you, Joao, let me tell you that we have founding members. Their names are on the website of T-Forum, the conference. These are the people who joined us 2013 to conceive the idea, to frame the idea, to action the idea, and gave birth to T-Forum. We are 10. When I say we, I don't mean we individuals, we institutions or companies. They are in no particular order: National Research Council in Naples, Italy, Swadeshi Club Hotels representing the industry of Italy, Cluster of Innovation Technologies, that's in Spanish, sorry. Cluster de Innovación, Tecnología en Turismo de las Baleares of Spain, Pestana Hotels Group in Portugal, University of Algarve, Portugal, University of Balearic Islands, or the same university I mentioned earlier, the same island I mentioned earlier from Spain. So both academic grounds and industry grounds are covered in these cases. We have the University of Beijing in China, University of Central Florida in the United States, University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, and University of Wisconsin-Stout, which is my own institution here. So we are the 10 bodies or 10 institutions or 10 companies that have been supporting the mission of T-Forum. We have a large agenda, but unfortunately, we have not been able to really get at it the way we want to. It is our mission to convince some people to join this force and to help us all to do something about transfer of knowledge to and within tourism. Again, we decided not to use the word knowledge. We use the word intelligence. That's why the name of the association, which is a formal association called Tourism Intelligence Forum. Now, João, may I invite you to tell us something about the profile of the conference, and then add any final comments you would like.
Thank you. Dear Professor Jafar Jafari, dear Professor Geoffrey Lipman, dear Dr. Pedro Lopes, a very special greeting to Dr. Alfonso Morvillo, co-founder of the T-Forum and who could not participate in this conference. Dear participants, on my personal behalf, on behalf of my fantastic colleagues, Manuela Guerreiro and Patricia Pinto, and the remaining members of the Research Center for Tourism, Sustainability and Well-being Organizing Committee, but also on behalf of all those at this university who have joined this center and actively participated in the organization of this conference, in particular, the Center for Advanced Studies in Management and Economics, the School of Management, Hospitality and Tourism, and the School of Economics. Brief words to express my deep gratitude to all participants in this conference who accepted our invitation to help us reflecting on the problems and challenges facing our societies and how tourism can follow these challenges in these problematic times of uncertainty and health crisis. To all of you who have joined us all over the world, from Australia, Belgium, Brazil, Cape Verde, China, Croatia, Spain, Finland, Hungary, Italy, Iran, Japan, Morocco, Portugal, United Kingdom, Saudi Arabia, Taiwan, Turkey, and the United States of America, and during these days have formed a virtual community of almost 400 people concerned with sharing experiences and proposals for solutions to these difficult times. Here are our thanks and the best wishes that we can continue together in the search for new knowledge or intelligence and new solutions. Dear participants, in the preparation of this conference and throughout these days, we have tried to embody the objectives of the T-Forum highlighted in its statutes, as mentioned by Professor Jafar. The T-Forum acts as the leading hub for the sharing of knowledge in theory and practice by linking and involving destinations, businesses, and research institutions. So in this regard, we are encouraged not only by the high number of researchers, but also by the registration of more than 100 participants linked to tourist companies and the management of tourist destinations. We believe that in this dialogue that took place during these days, we all came out more enriched and better prepared to contribute to the urgent transformation of our societies and to the transformation of the tourism itself. A final word addressed to Professor Jafar Jafari, hoping that the University of the Algarve has lived up to his dreams and the objectives of the T Forum, and that the challenges he has set for us to organize this conference have been achieved. As a great Portuguese poet wrote, "Dreams rule life." With this conference, we tried to channel our best energies so that Professor Jafari's dream also entered in our dreams today and always. Thank you all.
Thank you, Joao, for your nice review and nice words. I do appreciate it. I don't have to say anything extra because the quality of the program speaks for itself, and it was the host committee that put the program together, and I from outside helping, but it was really the host committee, the scientific committee of the host committee, and I know how much organizational matters and scientific matters took time, organization of it. And ladies and gentlemen, you know this was supposed to be on-site conference. It turned out to be online conference, and that caused a lot of problem. I mean, this is actually the first time I'm participating in a conference that originally was on-site and it was turned to online. I've done many webinars now that we create them online to begin with, not transform them. So transforming was a difficult situation. So Joao, the quality of the program speaks for itself and for the devotion of the committee and University of Algarve to the mission of T Forum, which is intelligence or knowledge, and universities are committed to its development and dissemination. And I know University of Algarve belongs to both, believes in both development of knowledge and its dissemination. We have Jeffrey also joining us from the previous panel. Jeffrey, are you there? I just want to make sure you're with us.
Yes, I'm here.
Great. And you are a member of this panel as well. And I have other people. I see Pedro also over there. I will call on him. In the last session, which was very engaging session, and some lights came on in many directions. Still, I have this challenging, I want to benefit from that discussion. The challenge of, we know what we should do about climate change, climate-friendly travel, etc., etc. So we have, again, these two rivers, to the industry and academia. We, as I think it was Dory who mentioned that we are already teaching sustainability, respect for nature, limited resources in our classes, and hopefully the message goes with them to the industry. We are not sure, but at least we are trying, and it's there. Just about any university is in hospitality and tourism is dealing with sustainability, and more recently, also sustainability of the host culture. In the past, we were always talking about the environment, but now recently we realized that we need two environments, natural environment and cultural environment, in order for tourism to survive. But I'm not sure if the message that you put across today, and we all believe in it, are ingrained in the minds of practitioners, especially if they graduated many years ago from the university, and their goal is the bottom line, to make sure that it's a business. They continue reminding us it's a business. So I have no problem to share what I know, because our resources are unlimited. Their resources is limited, which is money. If they give part of that, the budget that they have to us, they have that much less in the budget. But if I share my knowledge with the industry, I still have the same knowledge. I don't give up anything. So for we people in tourism, to give up our resources is easy. Now the question is how to make them recipient of this intelligence, and two, how we can keep them in the game or in the situation that you beautifully staged today in the previous panel. Jeffrey.
I think three things I would answer to your question. Number one, I think people inside the sector are actually learning about the realities of climate change, and people are not stupid, so they are responding to that, irrespective of what that means in terms of the economic impact. If you're in the Caribbean and you have a hurricane which is more and more intense, you are going to have to do something about it, irrespective of the fact that that's going to cost you more money, or you go out of business, to give you an example. So the first thing is that people will respond, but of course they tend to respond slowly, because when you have to make that choice, do I spend money or do I not, the tendency is not. And with the climate issue, for the most part, whatever you do is unlikely to attract new business. It may well help you to preserve some old business by explaining to customers that you've done things which are going to make your property or your transport service more climate responsive, but it's not a kind of a sexy piece to add to your brochure, for example. Despite what some of the discussion in the earlier session. But I think, you know, I like to believe in the good side of people, and that people will understand that this is the right thing to do. But I don't expect everybody to run in that direction. That's point one. Point two, I think what is going to change people's attitudes much, much more is regulation. And we heard from Herbert Hammerly in our group about the Green New Deal of the European Union. And to achieve a reduction in carbon of 60%, 55–60% by 2030, people are going to have to change their practices. And I think regulation will make them do that. And regulation will certainly follow from the Green New Deal. Regulations, directives, and national laws, it will work its way through. Third thing, technology. I think new technology, particularly in the transport sector, and it's going to come faster than people had earlier assumed. So to use road transport as a good example, and then an example in aviation. In road transport, people were talking about long-term transformation to electric cars. In some countries, Norway, long-term is 2025, because they realize that there is a benefit to be had, because the price of the renewables is coming down to be somehow commensurate with the price of fossil fuel. And I think that's something which will spread around. It will happen in the United States, it will happen in Europe. We'll also get new transport mechanisms. China, for example, we're getting an enormous growth in high-speed trains and which are generally thought to be less polluting than, for example, aviation or cars. So I think that's a third thing. And then the fourth thing is time. I said in the earlier panel, when we talk about transformation, we talk about starting now, but you don't have to finish now. You have to plan a progressive transformation. And I think it's the kind of progressive transformation that will get more intensified as you move to a new phase. So you start and you say, we can reduce our carbon to 40% by 2030. And then somebody comes along and says, no, we can do 50%. And I think that more people, as technology comes along and gives people the opportunity to do that, that plays back into regulation, that plays back into customer habits. Young people feel this urgency much more than older people. When I say young, I've got a daughter who's in her 40s. I shudder to say that, and it frightens me to say it, but I do. When I talk to her about progressive transformation, she says, no, we need to move quickly. We need to do things faster. And her kids are even more aggressive about this than her. So I think they will they'll move into companies, they'll move into management, and they will naturally think about the change much more than we do. So we shouldn't be desperate for the change to happen immediately. We should be desperate for the commitment to happen immediately. And that's why, within the context of what we're trying to do in our guerrilla organization in SunX Malta, we make the first step of the journey, make a commitment to climate-friendly travel, make a commitment to having a plan, make a commitment to sponsoring a young person to go an intern from your company to take our diploma. It's very low cost. If you're a European citizen, it's even lower cost. So I think, there is a kind of change that's inherent from all the things that are happening. And because we have a conference, we don't have to find a magic solution. We have to be able to identify changes and evolutions and interrelationships. And because this conference is an academic initiated forum, I think we should have that capacity to step back and to be sort of thoughtful in our approaches rather than looking for magic solutions. There aren't any magic solutions to the climate issue. It's a series of baby steps which actually somebody invents something and it gets generalized and you take a bigger step. And hopefully you get to where you want to. Then there's a disaster and you have to move more quickly. COVID is exactly an example of that. People said, we can't do that. We can't operate more sustainably. And then they found they couldn't operate, and they found that made life a little bit better when it was, when there wasn't any business activity. I hate to say that, but it's the truth. And a lot of thoughtful people are actually saying, how can we, the buzzword is build back better. Can we actually capture any of the good things that we know were good? If you're in Nepal and you finally see the Himalayas for the first time, or if you're in Beijing and you see the sun for the first time in a week, you actually might stop and say, hey, that's good. What should we be doing to make sure that we continue to get more of this? And I'm an optimist. I despaired when Donald Trump was elected. I despaired every time I saw him speak, and he dominated my television sets. And I rejoice that he's going to be kicked out of office. This is good. We are progressing.
Thank you on that good note. Yes, it's the commission that is driving us. And you're correct. We are road mapping forward. It's just if we can do it a bit faster. Maybe the older generation, outgoing generation, did not take on this mission early on, but right now those who are in it are with it, and the next generation would be doing the job. In the audience, we have both academia and the industry. In the academia group, we have professors who certainly would transfer this sort of knowledge or intelligence to their students. And then we have a number of students also in the audience. A number of them presented papers. So they get the message and they go with that message and that mission to the industry. But just one point of clarification, the T Forum is not an academic institution. It is an industry academic institution. It's the bridge. Jeffrey, I look at you as someone who has 1 foot in academia and 1 foot in the industry. And then we have people who have both feet in the industry. So I go to our next panel member, Pedro. Pedro represents the actual tourism, the practice of tourism. And before I give the microphone to you, yesterday by chance I was in your session panel, and then there was another paper session that I went to. Both of them were predominantly dealing with coronavirus. And something I noticed was, especially in your panel, the industry says, well, okay, while we are waiting, while we cannot do much, while the business is slow, we can do a number of things. But all the things that was mentioned as the remedy for the in between time until the tourism comes back, it had to do with the supply side of tourism. What we should do in hotels, what we should do at the airlines, we are changing the airports, we are modifying the airports, we are teaching about sanitation. This was all on the supply side. But then there's another, we learned that from economists, there's opposite to supply side is the demand side. The demand side are the tourists who are not coming. And the question is, should tourism be talking to those people who have no desire at this time to travel? We call them our markets, the German market, British market. Is the industry doing anything in the market? I think it was Francisco yesterday from the airport group that he said we have to smell the situation. In order to smell the demand, you have to be in the demand land. In other words, Pestana, Hilton, Air Portugal, etc., have to be where the tourists come from. Pedro, do you know if the industry is also over there smelling the situation and doing anything with the potential tourists that have been frozen in place for 10 months now, and we don't know how many more months they are going to be in that hibernation situation?
Hello.
Pedro,
hello, Jafar. Hello, Jafari. Hello, João Albino, and hello, all participants. Give me just one minute before I answer your question. Just to say that I'm happy to be here. You were the gentleman, you were the father of the T4 initiative. I was there almost from the beginning, but you were the father. And I'm happy to see that in this conference, as you mentioned, supposed to be on March in a place here in Algarve. And I have to mention João Albino and Efigênio Rebelo because they push a lot to do it in the Algarve, but fortunately we couldn't because coronavirus. But at least now the people, mainly this team and mainly as you mentioned, people from the university did a fantastic job. We did the conference, and João Albino just mentioned that were more than 100, I repeat, 100 participants in one side of the bridge. When you have to build a bridge, you have to start for both sides. And in the side of the academy, more than 100 participants, and in the side of industry, also more than 100 participants. So I think that even with Corona, even all difficulties, with almost no clients, we are doing our job, and at least something is moving, and the two parts of the bridge are coming up. So about demand side, I think we have to be realistic. And in this moment, the government of England say to the governments, the different governments of Great Britain say to the citizen, don't go abroad, period. It's an order. German Angela Merkel did the same. Don't go abroad, period. So we are in contact with demand. We have people in demand. You know that we have hotels in Netherlands, in Berlin, in London, and people don't at first they do not are allowed to travel. So it is in the short time. This is the phase to be frozen, to close, to shut down, and to wait. We can try to do this, to do that, but the people cannot go abroad, cannot go outside their countries, period. This is what we are facing today. And this is the real situation. We can speak about it, but this is a situation. So in the moment, we are there, we are contacting the demand. There are a lot of, for example, British people that now will like to come to Portugal or to Spain to play golf or to Greece, but they are not allowed. And if they came, no matter what, by boat, when they go back, they have 40 days quarantine imposing. So this is not the time. This is, I think, the time to shrink, to be strong, and the tsunami is coming. And is the second wave is exactly eating us. So we cannot. When we don't have floor, you cannot sink in the sky. So we have to keep to the floor. We have to survive. And after this second tsunami comes and passes, after some treatments, maybe some vaccines, maybe some quick tests can be done in the airports, maybe the flux start again. But in this moment, people is very afraid of going out of home, even to go to the supermarket, even to go to the coffee shop in the same building. This is what it is. So facing this very tough reality, tourism is not, there are no tourism in this moment in the world. Only a very small internal. There are no, at least here in Europe, there are no tourism at all. So first we have to wait for the good news. First we have to wait for any changes. And after that, yes, we have to go again for contacting the demand, ask what they need. But in this moment is I think is too early because people cannot move. It's an order. If they cannot move, they cannot do tourism.
Pedro, that's quite. It makes sense. You are absolutely right. But at the same time, since you represent the industry, I would like you to suggest what academia can do. Something practical academia can do. What are some of the questions? Like I suggested that the industry has put the demand aside. I'm just over there, they're not touching it. They used to spend so much money in the demand land. There's no expenditure of that sort. So there's a disconnect right now between demand and supply. And whether there is a role for PhD students, master's students, or a topic that professors can pass on to their students. Let me give you an example of the commitment expenditure of the supply side in the demand territory. About 20 years ago, I was reading a report that it said Jamaica, which depends on tourism, spends $13 on any arrival. So for one person to go to Jamaica, they have already invested $13 in the form of advertisement to draw the person. Now that money, Portugal is not spending, Pestana is not spending, other countries are not spending more or less, or they are very limited. Is there a way that we can still stay with the demand side of the study rather than just putting it aside?
No, maybe I was not explained in good words, but no, we are still spending money in demand side. The public authorities are also spending money in demand side. Remember that, for example, the tourism of Portugal and tourism of Algarve, and I'm sure tourism departments of all the countries, just to remember. Now it's not campaigns to sell, but campaigns to remember. We exist, we are here, we are waiting for you, everything is prepared, you can come. But it's campaigns to remember, not to sell, because people cannot come. So there are always something to do on demand side, but also in the other side, in our side, in the product side, as like look to the air transport companies. They are selling or giving up about 1/3 of the fleet. They are cutting down jobs. They are cutting down. They are shrinking because we have to be real in reality. And I think if in this moment the market is 20% of, if the cake is 20% of the first cake, now the cake is 20%, we have to adapt because we have a smaller cake, so we have to adapt. And I think, of course, the people in the PhDs areas, they like always to think about the tourism experience, the luxury product, but in this moment is more important to, I think, study the adaptation. It will be a very difficult adaptation. Some companies will die, some companies will survive, and first phase is the adaptation of the new reality. And second phase, like you mentioned, yes, is to go to the demand and try to understand what demand wants and try to push the demand back and adapt the planes, the hotels, the destinations to the new demand, because for sure, even after a vaccine or some kind of treatment, the mindset of the people change. And for sure, they will need, they will want a different kind of hotels, different kind of planes, with different services. So we have to also, it will be helpful if the academy can help us to understand what we have to change to adapt for the new tourist, because really it will be a new tourist. For example, in my feeling, I already spoke in the last, yesterday, big hotels, towers, places with very crowded places, big events, big conventions. I think we'll not in the next 4 or 5 years we'll return. So we have to adapt the products, the services, and the offer to the demand, and the demand is changing. So I think is a nice area to study the changes in the demand, and the changes the demands on the products and on the services we do.
That's exactly what I meant, to continue studying the demand so that we revise the supply accordingly.
Jafar, can I add a point?
Please.
I'm entirely as so often in agreement with what Pedro says. It's a reality check that we have to face up to, and it's not just a question of people deciding to use marketing budgets one way or another. Companies are hurting. Companies are laying off employees. And in those circumstances, however creative the advertising or keeping things in the demand side's mind may seem, when you're faced with the hard cost issues, you don't want to spend money on it. And it seems to me if there's something that academia could do, it could be to look at this new situation, to look at, for example, the new technologies for communications, and to try to find creative ways for companies to get to the demand side without having to spend money in the traditional way. And I give you one example. The trade shows. The trade shows are all closing at this moment, and rightly so. They should close. But people are discovering that they can go to virtual trade shows. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. Sometimes you can sit for hours in meetings and exercises. And I think that there are ways that academia could creatively look at how can the technology be used to help the sector do the things that it used to do physically in a better virtual way. And I'm not talking about technology use and that sort of thing, but are there creative and different ways of sending messages on social media? Is Instagram better value than LinkedIn? Is creating a LinkedIn group a useful way to get across to a wider variety and more targeted form of customers? And I think if academia were to come up with some of those issues and give the results to industry. Industry, in my view, would find that quite helpful.
Thank you. And that's indeed the intent of this session, just planting some seeds of ideas in the minds of professors who teach hospitality and tourism, and in the mind of students who are with us, busy doing research. Actually, this morning, my 3 o'clock in the morning, my time, we had a panel exactly on technology. But it was more about education in hospitality and tourism during these hard times. And we had one of the leading universities in Macau or China, and another leading university from Japan. So we dealt with the matters, we agreed on matters that could be taught through technology. But we still have no sense how we teach hospitality, service, big heart, open arms, mannerism, style of delivery, national character, that French are like that, Chinese are like that. How do you, textbooks would not do, virtual reality would not do. I'm not initiating this as a topic for now, because we are at the end of this, the session at the conference. But this is what we discussed this morning, and we were happy with the courses we could teach through technology, but we had no good advances in how to teach hospitality. Tourism is made up of 2 parts, which I call it body and mind. Body is the soul, and mind, body is tourism. The corpus is tourism, and its spirit is called hospitality. And hospitality is the most intangible thing that you can imagine. And that is the part technology cannot do. Yes, we can do virtual tours, and they will be taken for the novelty of it once or twice, but tourism is about mobility of body and mind. And I think that is, after coronavirus, is going to happen. To benefit from another event that I'm organizing, we are doing a webinar series, more for small operators and small communities. We do it once a month. We have been doing this for 5 months. And this is my conclusion from at least 6 or 7 webinars we have had with the speakers from the industry, from academia, academic community. The essence of tourism are still there. Sun, sea, etc., they're all there, and they're going to stay there. They're not going to go away. But there are some new essays, which is my conclusion of those webinars, which connects to the points that you mentioned, Pedro, and we have been discussing on. The new essays are service, safety, security, sanitation. These are the big essays that are going to govern the supply revisions. Now, security, in whose mind? You see, we have tourists who are from the United Nations. Security doesn't have the same meaning for everybody. Service, sanitation does not have the same meaning. So we really have some challenging time to deal with the new essence of tourism that should be accommodated now in the supply side as we are retraining our existing employees. Pedro, do you want to add anything, or Joao, or Jeff?
Just adding that, as you know, we always do questionnaires to our clients. And what you mentioned, Jafar, service, mainly security and sanitization are now key words. And we understand that our clients were very happy to see that we use special machines for clean the rooms, impose some certain rules on the certain rules on behavior and certain rules. So I agree that people is afraid of traveling, but they travel more if to places where they feel safe. And sanitation and security is two very important issues. that everybody now is very worried with. I agree completely.
There is, Jafar, one tendency, one issue which has emerged during this period, and again, I'm sure Pedro is experiencing this, and that is the intensification and the increase in domestic travel as distinct from international travel. Because, and the reason in my mind being that within a particular jurisdiction, you have all of the standards and people know about them. And whereas once you start crossing borders, even inside the EU, it raises challenges to people, including, will I still be able to get back from where I came from? So I think there's a big emphasis on domestic travel. And one thought occurred to me, it's a sort of off the wall and a bit esoteric. In the stimulus packages, and I think we're going to be seeing more stimulus packages, and we need them to keep the economy running if this virus continues. There used to be a whole approach to social travel. I think the name was BITS. And there was an organization actually in Brussels which promoted travel for people who couldn't otherwise get a holiday, couldn't otherwise get to experience a different city, a different location. And I'm wondering if anybody's ever looked at the possibility of reinvigorating that concept. In other words, you say to government, the point about stimulus is there's no money in the economy because the economy is not turning around, people are out of work, they can't spend money. So if you want to get them to spend money, they have to get money from somewhere. So the government gives a stimulus package. What if there was some thought and research went into the value of giving stimulus to basically poorer people, to give them the experience of a holiday starting domestically, and you give them, you say, here's 250 euros, here's 500 euros, here's 250 euros a month, and you can use this to go on vacation. You can actually use it to go to experience a Pestana hotel that otherwise you would never be going to stay in. I think this could be something that could have some research, and it has already a body in this BITS organization that you might want to take a look at.
Yes, subject of domestic tourism came up during the conference, as well as staycation. Actually, yesterday it was mentioned. And for your information, we have a webinar coming up in April on a staycation. So these topics are important, but then if the government spends money on staycation and domestic tourism, the airlines would not support that because the distance, they want a distance. Domestic tourism would not.
That's an airline issue. That's not a tourism issue. That's an airline survival issue. The airlines the airlines are the first people to be at the door of the government with their hands out. And there's another thought, if you want thoughts injected. These things happen periodically. Every 10 years, there's another black swan crisis. You might think that the industry would get together with the insurance people and put some provision in there, rather than assuming the first time something of this kind happens, we write some papers to go to governments to say why we should get a bailout.
Well, again, this is a seeds for thought, especially among our students and professors, but then also for the industry to tune up with the reality of the new S's in tourism. We need to move out of this session because we have another session coming up, which is the award ceremony. Joao, do you want to add something?
Thank you, Jafar. Well, I would like to thank your thoughts and our special guests, Professor Lippmann, and our special friend, Dr. Pedro Lopez. I think after this conference, it will be a strong commitment between our university and the local companies to look together to the new situation. So it will be our commitment to have a stronger partnership and to see the supply and the demand sides, and to see how can we foresee and work to a new creative situations, of course, not only in technology, but also, as you mentioned, the supply side. And at least we have to plant tourism sustainable development in our destinations. So we have to work together right now.
Thank you. That's a nice summary. I'm not going to thank you and say goodbye because we continue. We don't even have to change room. I think Manuela, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we stay in the same room, virtual room, to continue. Correct, Manuela? Hola, Manuela.
Yes. You are right. Same room. The next door will be our weekend.
All right. All right. So we are changing gears now. We are going to the award ceremony, and I think Sergio is going to lead us forward on this. Sergio.
Okay. Thank you. I will just share a very brief presentation, if you permit me.
Please.
Are you able to listen to me properly?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Before I announce the awards, I would like, on behalf of the organization committee, to express our gratitude and appreciation to several people and organizations that have made the attribution of the awards possible. Firstly, I would like to thank all the authors of the presentations and full papers that were submitted to the T-Forum conference. Without their contribution, this event would not have been possible. Secondly, I would like to express also our gratitude to the sponsors of the awards. In particular, we would like to thank Professor Valine Smith, the Research Center Cinturs, the SunX program, and Professor Jafar Lippmann, and last but not least, Professor Eduardo Foyas Solá, who unfortunately passed away last year. Without their generosity, there would be no awards. Thirdly, I would like to thank all the participants and researchers who acted as reviewers of the abstracts and of the full papers. Without their help, it would not have been possible to make a decision regarding the papers to recognize. Fourthly, I would like to thank as well Professor Jafar Jafari for helping us to bring everyone and everything together. To all of you, many thanks. Finally, I would like to briefly explain the procedure that we have adopted in order to reach a conclusion regarding the papers to award. As you are probably aware, there were 8 awards associated with the T-Forum conference. We had 4 awards regarding the Valine Smith Outstanding Tourism Award, 4 top presentations which bring to light theoretically based applications of tourism intelligence. We had as well a Cinturs Best Paper Award for the top paper presented at the conference by a PhD student at the Research Center Cinturs. We had as well 2 top papers presented at the conference on climate friendly. the SUNX Best Paper Award. And finally, there is another award, that is the Eduardo Foya Solá Award for Tourism Innovation, to be given to a top paper presented at the Conference on Tourism Innovation. Regarding the process that we adopted to reach a conclusion, we followed several steps. All the full papers submitted to the conference went through a double-blind review process, so each of the papers was assessed by two independent and different reviewers who assessed the papers based on 6 different criteria: originality, relationship to the literature, methodology, results, implications, and quality of the communication. For each of these criterion, a 5-point Likert scale was used, with one meaning a poor performance on that criterion and 5 meaning an excellent performance. We asked as well each reviewer to mention whether he or she acknowledged that the paper should be put forward or should be considered for an award. Only papers with at least 1 recommendation for an award and an overall score equal or higher to 3.5 were considered for awards, because they would give us some guarantee of quality. I would like also to mention that it is because these 2 criteria that explain the reason why, although there were 8 awards, only 7 prizes are going to be given. Because in which regard the SUNX program, although there were 2 prizes, unfortunately there was only 1 paper in that category that met these 2 criteria, having a score equal or higher than 3.5 and also having been recommended for an award. Having said that, and not wanting to take too much of your attention, we will pass now to the most interesting moment. So, the 4 Valine Smith Outstanding Tourism Awards go to the 4 papers. First, the paper Madeira Island Tourist Psychological Profile and Well-Being by Soraya Garcês, Margarida Pocinho, and Saúl Jesus. The second one, to the paper How Hotel Employees' Role Stress Can Shift the Structural Empowerment Job Satisfaction Link by Helena Almeida. The third award, to the paper Arbitration in Tourism and its Influence on the Performance of the Tourism Industry. And finally, the fourth, to the paper Forecasting to Hotel Demand for Revenue Management using Machine Learning Regression Methods. So, to all of you, congratulations. Regarding the Cintour's Best Paper Award, the paper award goes to the paper On the Role of Internal Stakeholders in Place Branding by Homayoun Golestane, Manuela Guerreiro, Patricia Pinto, and Sayed Mossadad. To all of you, congratulations. The SUNX Best Paper Award goes to the paper Activating an Artisanal Salt Pan, Tourism Crowding In or Waterbirds Crowding Out. Authors Jorge Ramos, Patricia Pinto, Pedro Pintasilgo, Anabela Rezende, and Luís da Fonseca. To all of you, congratulations. And finally, the award in memory of Professor Eduardo Foya Solá. For tourism innovation, the award goes to the paper Designing Compelling Accommodationscapes, Testing a Framework by Dora Agapito, Patricia Pinto, Mário Ascensão, and Passi Tuominen. So, on the behalf of the organization committee, we would like to express our congratulations to all the winners. Well done.
Thank you very much, Sergio. I want to assure everybody that the review process was extremely objective. I endorse that. And for your information, as of this minute, I did not know who the winning persons would be. So this is how objective it was. This was fresh news to me as well. Thank you very much, Sergio. I have done, as you can imagine, all my life as editor, I've been doing reviews. Therefore, I know what it took to do the reviews, how much time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears to get to where we are now. Thank you very much, and congratulations to all the awardees. Hopefully we can continue with this system, not only with T-Forum, of course we will continue, but also a system of acknowledging fresh ideas, innovative ideas, etc., in the field of hospitality and tourism. Well, anything and everything, even the good things, have to come to an end. So we are getting to the end of the program. Manuela, am I missing something, or could I close the conference? And Patricia.
Patricia, you think that it's everything, no?
Yes, I think it's everything said. It was a great conference. I think it exceeded our best expectations. We are very, very happy with the overall results. We finished this day with this great feeling of success. We worked so hard together, and we now have these so good results. I think that everyone enjoyed the conference, from the scholars, academics, everyone. So it was a big pleasure. I hope we can join in Algarve, maybe in 2022, I don't know, in a presential conference, not in an online format, without this pandemic virus that is scaring us. So thank you so much to everyone. We will go on working because we still have to do the bridge with the journals, because many of these papers we are going to try that they will be published in the journals that are associated with the conference. So our work will go on. We also want to finish our book of abstracts and to finish some details that are needed to officially end all the works associated with the conference. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to all. It was really, really a great pleasure to organize this conference with this great team that involves so many colleagues of the University of Algarve, of the Faculty of Economics, of the School of Management, of the research, our research center, but also the other research center of the university, which is CEFAS. Sergio, for example, is here. He is a good representative of that center. So we are all together, and when we are all together, we can have these great results. And Jafar, once again, you were with us in all moments. Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity of organizing this conference on behalf of the University of Algarve. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Patricia. You are the host, and of course, we have to thank you, and your team are the host, and we have to thank you. In continuation or supplement what Patricia just said, besides the publication that she mentioned, we also do a book. Every time we do a book, and I do a book series, which is called Bridging Tourism Theory and Practice. We had 115 papers presented, and we will be choosing approximately 14, 15 of them for this publication, but we have to come up with a book that has a theme in it. So it has to be a selection of on the basis of the theme. and on the basis of quality. And the editor of this book, one of the editors of this book is Noel Scott. You met him this morning. He was in charge of he gave the keynote talk on experience and followed by a panel. Of course, we cannot have a conference without speakers. Thank you very much, keynote speakers, for your contribution. You were on the stage, some of you more than once, taking the last person, which is Jeffrey. He was on the stage 3 times today in 3 different sessions. Thank you very much. All the panels, panel moderators and panel chairs. Thank you very much. And panelists. Thank you very much. And of course, the authors of 115 papers. And finally, thanks to the audience. Without an audience, we cannot have a conference. We really appreciate your participation. We cannot express our feelings together because everything has gone virtual. As Patricia said, hopefully we can have on-site, in-person conferences very soon. And whenever a hopeful situation is used, I would endorse it with 3 words, Ojalá, Oshallah, Inshallah. One of those is going to work for us. So thank you very much. But I cannot, again, it's not for me to thank the host because you were the host and in charge, but still I have to take the time to appreciate the support of the rector of the university. I met him some years ago when I was spending a semester of sabbatical leave there. Then he was working, he was a professor then, and now he's the rector. So it's very nice to have him in that capacity. Dean Efigênio, Joao, you already met in person. Pedro, you met him today with Pustana. And then I'm afraid I'm going to leave some names out. So please forgive me if I do. I did this very quickly during the break. Pedro, Manuela, Patricia, Sergio, Ana, Alexandra. I cannot even read my own writing. I'm missing one name. Jorge, Luis. I cannot read my own writing. I did this so quickly. Magdo, Julieta, Marlene, thank you very much. I know I missed some names. I'm sorry. I just did this last minute. Here it is. My documents. I cannot read my own. Thank you very much. And this brings us to the end of the conference. But I want to tell you something that a colleague of mine, a very well-known person in the field of tourism, field of education, research, and scholarship, Jeffrey Wall. Jeffrey Wall from Canada, he's a retired professor, now very active in studying tourism in China, etc. I asked him, one day I asked him, Jeffrey, what is a good conference to you? I go to a lot of conferences, you go to conferences. What is a good conference to you? Without much of thinking, he said, well, if I go to a conference and I get 2 new ideas, I meet 2 persons, and I get 1 challenge, I'm very happy. So I hope we succeeded in giving you some fresh ideas, some challenges, and we could not help you to meet the individuals, but I'm sure during the presentation, say, well, this is the person who talks my language. This is the person who's on the same page with me. This is the person with whom I should connect. So I hope each one of you have got your 5 things, whatever they might be. And if you could think of 5 things of good ideas, good persons, good challenges, etc., we close by saying that this has been a quality conference. Thanks to the team. Thank you very much. Hopefully, we will get together in person, but if not, we will have to continue in this fashion. Thank you very much, everybody.